Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Citizens Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I'm the teacher Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View Channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available both from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled from Monday through Thursday, 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are in our 8th week of our 9-week course. You need to be submitting work definitely at this point to stay on track with our course. So a reminder that the support questions are not for marking. You decide which ones and how many to do. If you need to do them all, great, no worries. If you don't need to do them all, you do you. You know what makes sense for yourself, for your time, and for your energy, and for your level of learning. So feel free to skip questions if you're understanding a concept. But also, if you need more practice, please ask, and I'm happy to send you more practice. The key questions, the ones with the little key icon, are the ones to submit for marking. So please do all of these questions. Show all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. This way I can get a full understanding of what it is that you understand, and you're able to get feedback about anything that you're struggling with. So please show me all of your work. So how do you submit work for marking? Well, there's 3 methods. The first is to scan your work and send it electronically. You can scan your completed work through a device. If you have an Apple device, using the Notes app, there's a scan function. And if you're using an Android device, using the Google Drive app, there's a scan function. These are both apps that generally come with these devices, though they are free to download if you need to. If you need support learning how to actually scan with these devices, on my YouTube channel, there are some videos under the tech tutorials that will help you learn how to do that. You can also ask, and I'm happy to support you. Then you can send it to me either by email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you could also send it through Facebook Messenger, where my name is bslatewasa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our 74 Front Street location. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. So you can just put it in there at any time. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students are also welcome to fax in their work if you have access to a fax machine. That is no problem at all. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name bslatewasa. So you can friend me on Facebook or subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you'll get notifications every time I upload one of our videos. All of our radio Zoom classes are recorded, and I upload them shortly after airing onto YouTube. I put them in a playlist called MEL3E so that you can find what it is. You can find the most recent up-to-date work. Also, I have videos explaining common errors and confusing concepts, so that is a good place to go if you are struggling with something. I might have a video there that talks just about that particular topic without having to do a general Google search or general internet search and sift through everything on the internet. You might be able to find a video that just explains what you're confused about in a short 2 to 10, maybe 10-minute video right there. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. Either you can join me live through Zoom, even if you're just going to sit on silent and watch, totally fine, or watching the replays on YouTube. This is going to give you the full experience and set you up for the most success. However, if you don't have reliable internet and you can't do either of those options, let me know, and I'm happy to send you a copy of the videos so you get the full experience. So if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. My email address is bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE at nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook, like I've said, where my name is B Slate Wahsa. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or you can also call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., though I teach from 9 to 11, so that's not a good time to try to get a hold of me. All right, today we are looking at our last lesson in MEL3E. So this is the last new material. After this, we will just be reviewing everything to set you up for your final project. So lesson 20 is comparing modes of transportation. So our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to create a budget for using public transportation, and you will understand the costs of renting a vehicle from various companies. You know you've met these learning goals because you can calculate the monthly and yearly costs of public transportation, and you can explain which is the best option when comparing car rentals. So when will you use this in real life? Well, we are strengthening our ability to think critically. It's important to budget. It's important to look at the whole picture. It's important to think critically about what your needs really are in order to prepare yourself. So this is part of the skills that we're developing. But first, let's activate our brain with some mental math. You know, hopefully by this point that I don't like mad math minutes. They cause stress and anxiety. They focus on speed and memorization, which are not the foundations of math understanding. So we don't do that. Instead, we learn and talk about strategies that we can use in various different situations based on our comfort and the numbers and the ways that our brains work. So our question today is 35 times 16, and we're breaking these factors into smaller factors to make the numbers more friendly. So we're not adding these numbers together when we're breaking them into factors. We're thinking about the numbers that multiply to make these numbers in order to figure out things that are easier for us to do. So 35, I know, is 7 times 5. And 16, we can break up in a couple of different ways, but I'm going to break it up into 2 times 8. So with multiplication, it's what's called commutative, which you don't need to know the words, but what it basically means is that you can do it in any order, right? 2 times 8 is 16, 8 times 2 is 16. The order doesn't matter. Because we're only multiplying, we can rearrange these in any way that we want. So I really like this 5 times 2 because 5 times 2 is 10. So I'm going to do 5 times 2. My pen has stopped working because I pressed a button. So 5 times 2 is 10. And then we're going to do 8. And then we're going to do 7 times 10 and times 8. We can do all 3 of them. Sorry, my pen is taking a long time to come back to life for me. All right, so there we go. Now it has all the times that I attempted to write this. Being patient is hard. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so 5 times 2 is 10. And then I still have 7 and 8 times each other and times 10. Now again, I can do this in any order. I know that 7 times 8, what that is one of the ones that I've memorized as a kid. How I learned this one, this was a tricky one, is that I learned it because 5, 6, 7, 8, 56. 7 times 8 is 56. Now it is totally a gimmick. It is not based on anything logical or mathematical. It is just the way that I remembered that 7 times 8 is 56 because 5, 6, 7, 8. So feel free to use that if you want or not. So 56 times 10 is going to be 560. So by rearranging the parts, I was able to get that 35 times 16 is 560. So this could be a way to make the numbers friendly for you so that you can rearrange them to make them so that you can do the multiplication in your head. Okay, so what do we need to know going into this lesson? I just wanted to do a little bit of time arithmetic. If we are adding times, like durations, length of time, we just want to remember that because time is not base 10, which most of our number systems are base 10, that we need to think about that. It doesn't matter that it's not base 10. You don't need to know that. You just need to remember that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So if we're going to add time together, we need to remember that we need to think about a whole unit is 60 minutes. Okay, so if I have 4 hours and 35 minutes plus 1 hour and 46 minutes, so the hours, I can just say, okay, well, 4 plus 1 hour is 5 hours. So that's a start. And then 35 minutes plus 46 minutes. So how I probably would think about this is I would adjust using one of those strategies that we've been using. And I would think, okay, well, I'm going to think about, I'm going to start at 35. And then I'm going to add 5 to get to a friendly number. So that gets me to 40. And then I'm going to add 20, because if I add 20, that means that I'm getting to 1 hour. And that's important, right? That's 60. So that's 1 hour. And then I'm going to think about, well, what do I have left? Well, I've said 25 already, and I need to have 46. So that means that I have another 21 is what I'm left with. So this is going to be 1 hour and 21 minutes. So 35 minutes plus 46 minutes is 1 hour and 21 minutes. So if I add that to the 5 hours that I already have, means that I have a total of 6 hours and 21 minutes. And that's how I would add those two together. All right, so then if I have 7 hours and 20 minutes, subtract 3 hours and 55 minutes. Okay, so once again, I'm going to subtract my hours and say, okay, so I have 4 hours. And then I have 20 minutes, take away 55 minutes. Well, if I have 20 minutes, take away 55 minutes, that's tricky because I don't have a full hour and I need to take away more minutes than I have. So what I'm actually going to think about is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to change this to be 3 hours. And I'm going to take my 1 hour and turn it into 60 minutes. And so then I would say 80 minutes. And then from there, I am subtracting 55 minutes. So I'm adjusting my numbers to make them friendlier for me. This is not a beautiful way of writing it down. I'm just tracking what I'm thinking about. So now if I do 80 minutes, take away 55 minutes, so I can still think about it on a number line if I wanted to. So I'm starting at 80 and I'm going back 55. So I'm going to say, well, if I'm going to go back 50, that's going to get me to 30 minutes. And then if I go back another 5, that's going to get me to 25 minutes. So this results in 3 hours and 25 minutes. And that's how you do time arithmetic. So it's a little bit tricky. You need to do things in kind of parts. But again, because we've been thinking about doing arithmetic logically and based on friendly numbers, you can totally manipulate your numbers to make it so that they're easy for you. You don't have to follow the standard algorithm of adding things up or subtracting things. Do it so that it makes sense for you. Manipulate the numbers to make sense for you. Okay, so then what are our new concepts today? First, we're going to look at public transportation. In our last lesson, we briefly looked at the hub transit. We're not going to look into that more today, but the hub transit would fall under public transportation as well. So first, we're going to just look at comparing a car versus public transportation, and this is on page 43 of your IL booklet. So living in an urban center means that there's possibly a means of public transportation. So an urban center is a city, and we don't have a extensive public transportation system here in Sioux Lookout, and there are not public transportation systems in northern communities. They're just too small. So if you are visiting a new place, if you're going someplace, a big city, it can be really daunting to try to figure out the public transportation. It's a great tool. It's cheaper transportation than using cabs or Ubers. It's faster than if you're just walking. It means that you don't have to figure out how to drive in that area, but it can be scary. So basically, the internet is your friend when it comes to public transportation. We cannot go through every single public transportation system in every single city that you might visit because there are likely thousands. I don't even know the number of public transportation systems because there are just so many in the world. But the internet, wherever you are going, you can always, the internet is going to hook you up. If you search wherever you're going for and you type in public transportation, if there is public transportation, it'll tell you and you can figure it out. So things to consider when you're looking into public transportation: the cost of the fare. So how much it's going to cost to actually get on the whatever the vehicle is. Can you use cash? Do you need to buy tickets or tokens? Are there digital cards? Is there something else that I haven't even considered? What is it do you need for that particular type of public transportation? Does the age of the traveler matter? Here in Sioux Lookout for the hub, if you're under 12 and under, then it's $2.50 per ride. Whereas if you're over that, then it's $5 per ride. In Toronto, if you're under the age of 12 and under, then it's free. But if you're an adult, it's $3.25. So knowing the age of the traveler for that particular place and that transportation is important because your fare is going to be different. And then how do you actually pay? Do you give the money to the driver? Is there a box that you put it in when you're getting onto the transit? Is there something that you need to touch, like if you have a digital card that you touch it to a button and it beeps? Like how do you actually pay? Can you buy tickets or tokens or digital cards on a bus, or do you just only have to have cash? Can you do it with your debit card? What are your options? This is all stuff to understand because it's hard to figure out in the moment. And then what are the types of transportation? So what do the stops look like? How do you find them? How do you know where to get onto public transportation? So how do you actually get on? How do you get off? Do you need to flag something down? Do you need to press a button and ding something? What is just those sort of etiquette things? How does that all work? And what are the names and the numbers for the routes and stops so that you know which are you getting on the right bus? Is there more than one bus that goes down this road? And if you get on the wrong bus, you end up in the completely wrong place. How do you know where you're getting off? Is there something that announces it? Do you need to know the names of the streets? Do you need to know the names of the stops before you need to get off? How do you figure all that out? That's really important. So we're going to look at 3 different public transportation systems to just sort of give it an idea. Again, the internet is your friend. We're going to look at Thunder Bay. So this is what the Thunder Bay buses look like. Thunder Bay public transportation is a bus system. So all of the routes are buses. They have generally this green logo with that says City of Thunder Bay, and then there'll be other information potentially on it, but that's how you know that it is a public transportation bus, is that it's going to say City of Thunder Bay Transit on it. So for Thunder Bay Transportation, the transit fare, so how much it currently costs, is that it costs $3 if you're paying in cash. If you buy 10 tickets, then it's $25. So that means that each ride is $2.50 per ticket. If you buy an adult monthly pass, it's $80. If you get a discount monthly pass, and I don't know why you would get a discount monthly pass, that's $66. So you'd have to look into that. Then there's senior, youth, there's senior annual passes, and there's other information here at the bottom. It says children 12 and under are free. So that is good to know. I don't know where you would buy tickets. If you're wanting to buy tickets, that would be something that if you lived in Thunder Bay or if you're visiting Thunder Bay, you would want to look into if you were interested in buying tickets. I don't know if you can just buy them at convenience stores or if you have to buy them from like a bus station. I don't know. Then here is the transit system map. So you can see here's a map of Thunder Bay, and this shows you the routes. So here it tells you all the different routes, that their name, the color that they show up on the map, and their number. So the main line for this route, which is Route 1 main line, it's going to say that on the bus, and the bus follows this red line north and then south. And the same thing for all of these different, that gives you the number and the name of the bus. Then also in the key, they tell you important like major terminals or where these flags are. So this is where there's going to be a bunch of, as you can see, a bunch of buses come and cross at this point. So if you're transferring, that means that you can meet, your bus will meet other buses. So there's various places throughout the city where there's main transfer points. Then there's just other points of interest, healthcare facilities, schools, libraries, and other important points of interest. So that's just, this map adds those in case you're trying to figure out how to get to the Greyhound terminal, or you're trying to get to Silver City. Then you say, okay, well, that's star 10. So then you look around and you try to figure out where star 10 is. This is really small, so I can't zoom in more, but you could zoom in online more if you'd like. Okay, so not that. Now how do I unzoom? Now that I've zoomed in. This is the joy of, I thought that if I pressed escape, it did it. There we go. All right, so that is Thunder Bay. So here, this is one route. Just to zoom in on one particular route, if you clicked on it on there, you would go to Jumbo Gardens. I picked the Jumbo Gardens route, which is 3J. So the bus would say 3J on it. And you can see here, it tells you, you can zoom in and you can say, okay, it drives along Waverly Street and then on Red River Road. And then here you can see these arrows show that it goes around this way on the southern part and then goes north and then drives back on a little bit further north and then comes back down south from River Road. These different letters mean different things, and you'd have to click on them or go to the main page and figure that out. This E, there's a certain route here because it's dotted, makes me think that it only happens during like rush hour or a particular time when this is available, maybe on the weekends, I don't know. But this part of the route is a little bit different. Then also here, where all of these other letters are, it's telling you all the other buses that meet at this point, and so you could transfer onto these other buses. So that's how you read one of these smaller maps. Oh, here what tells us on the, what those numbers mean, they tell you they give you a timeline. So if they connects to the route, that for this one you have to look it up. It tells you when the bus is going to be at those points. So when it's at A, is at 6:20 in the morning, and then next time is at 6:45, and then that they continue to throughout the day tell you when the bus is going to be there. The same for all of these various points. And it tells you that it continues about every 14 minutes or so. then here at the bottom says refer to Route 13 John Jumbo scheduled for evening service. So this is only during the day. During the evening, you have to go on a different bus. So that's how you can find that information out, how to catch a bus in those areas. All right, so then the next bus system that we're going to look at is Winnipeg. So the public transportation in Winnipeg Transit, this is the logo. So the buses, again, this is another bus system, have this T, this blue T for Winnipeg Transit, and that will be on the buses and also on the stops so that you can know where to get on. This is one picture of one of the stops, what it might look like, or it might just look like a pole with a little flag on the side of the road. It might not be a big shelter. Then here is the fare system. So they break it up in terms of full fare, youth fare, senior fare, post-secondary fare. If you're paying by cash, the full fare is $310, and for post-secondary it's $310. For youth and seniors, it's $260. Then they go and tell you there's various e-passes. You can get a monthly pass, semester pass, an annual pass, paper passes, Pego Smart Card. I don't know what all of these things mean, again, because I haven't used the public transportation in Winnipeg. But if you're looking into those, you can look more detailed in terms of if you're using eCash, how you actually do that, where you get that. But you can see this is why each system has different language and it has different rules, and so it's really tricky to understand everything. But this is why you need to look into it and why the internet's your friend, because then you can search it up. We're just not going to look at the details of every single one. And then here is the map. Winnipeg is much larger than Thunder Bay, so you can see that there's lots going on, that there's lots of different routes, and it's a little bit daunting. So you can go, if it's going to open the file, I had it linked in here so that we can now zoom in. And you can slide around so that you can really look to see where you want. Here you can see there's a see and a large downtown map. So there is here in the lower corner, they zoom in terms of showing you the roads and all the buses that are where they stop in those areas. There's downtown routes that are just focusing on being in this area, and there's express routes, so things that probably don't stop as often, and then then it extends out to the whole city. So it's a pretty extensive route, bus line. Like, there's buses that go everywhere, and they tell you the various routes. How they have it categorized isn't a color per line, like on the Thunder Bay, each bus had a different color. Here, the colors are based on the general area. So the red routes are the downtown routes. The black routes are the express routes. The blue routes are the transit way routes. So they're going to be going along like the bigger highways. The brownish green route is crosstown. So it's going from one end of town to the other end of town. And then the green routes are the suburban routes, so on the outside. So it's just, they have it sort of categorized a little bit differently, which is again why it's important to understand each of the places where you're going to go, what you need to know. All right, so here is when that information is really daunting. So looking at one particular route, so you can click on, when you go to the website, you can click on a particular route if you know that's the route that you want or the area that you want, and then you can get just that route. So you can see, it shows you which roads it drives down and the main stops. Again, these letters, I'm assuming, are just going to give us a timeline of when they're at those points. And here the legend tells you that the dark line is weekday rush hour service only. So it only goes to these other parts during rush hour. And then otherwise this is an express portion. So they just drive through this part fast. So understanding that is really important. They are also changing their system, so there's less paper information and more online. So, and there's like apps and stuff, so then you can go in and you type in or you select the route that you want, and then it shows you on the map, and then it gives you some information about weekday service, that this is when it runs, that there's no Saturday or Sunday service. And then it tells you the timelines of where there's going to be at these main intersections. Of course, it's estimated because they can't do it precisely because life happens, but it gives you a rough idea when the bus is going to be at these various places. So all of this is now based on an app. The Winnipeg Transit app is the primary way of getting this information when you're traveling in Winnipeg. Oh yeah, so the difference between these two is that this is to going down, so your Route 42 downtown, so you're going into downtown, and then you have the same one where you're going out of downtown north to Transcona, so it's the opposite direction. So you have to just again make sure that you're going in the direction that you want to be going in. And then finally, we're going to look at Toronto, just because Toronto again is a really, really extensive public transportation system, and going there can be really daunting. And many folks do end up being in Toronto for some period of time. So just understanding it is useful. You can pay cash for most places at $3.25 for an adults, $2.30 for youth. And again, I told you that 12 and under is free. You can also buy a Presto ticket, which is a little card that you can then tap. So you can get a Presto 1 ride ticket or 2 ride ticket or a day pass. A day pass, you can use it as many times as you want, and you only pay this one rate, $13.50 for the whole day. With the Presto 1 ride and 2 ride tickets, they have a 2-hour transfer. So it means that you can use them multiple times in that 2-hour window from when you first use them, which is just kind of a nice thing to do. So that's the Toronto Transit, which is the TTC, Toronto Transit Commission. That's the fares. And then here's the map. Toronto is huge, so you can see that this map is huge. It is super daunting, and you don't even understand necessarily how the extension, like it's hours to go from one end to the other end. So it is really overwhelming to look at. And they also have multiple types of transportation on it. So looking at just the one map is pretty overwhelming, because there are 3 different types of transportation vehicles in the Toronto, in the TTC. There's buses that look like this, it's all red is the logo system, and it is this TTC is the logo here. So these are buses, and these buses pull up to stops and pull over to the side of the road, depending on the line, and drive on certain routes. Then this here in the bottom right are called streetcars, and they have to ride on the tracks, but they generally ride above ground. There are a couple places where it might go down underground a little bit, but mostly it is above ground, and they get their power from electrical lines above. So these tracks are not, they're safe to walk on. I mean, they're safe to walk on in terms of you're not going to get electrocuted. They're not safe to walk on in terms of you might get hit by a streetcar or a car, but they're just in the roads, and cars can drive over them in some places. Other places, they're just dedicated lanes for the streetcars. Streetcars do not pull over to the side of the road because they are stuck on tracks. So you might have a stop on the side of the road, the streetcar might stop, and then you need to walk into the road and get onto the streetcar. So that's just something to note. That's a little bit different. Buses generally pull over to the side of the road, or else the stops might be in the middle of the road, because that's where the streetcar is going to stop. So you need to cross into the middle of the road when it's safe and wait for the streetcar there. And then we have subways, which are underground transit, and they go really fast, and they only stop at the subway stops are a little bit farther away and are at main intersections that make sense. And so you have to go underground, you pay above and you go underground, and then you get on. When a train comes, you get on, and you need to be really careful because you don't want to fall down here because this is where the live rail is, which is where there's the electricity that runs the trains, and could kill you. So you stay on the platform back from the yellow line. So stops in Toronto, what it looks like. These are all different types of poles that if you're above ground that they will be. So this is a streetcar, whereas this is a bus. And so they all can look kind of like that. Subway stations above ground can look like this, where you walk in above ground, or you might have stairs that go down and you look for this indicator. The TTC logo is going to tell you, so then you can go down and the subway is going to be below. So in Toronto, it's just a little bit different. Then here is one route, one bus route. So the bus route, this information again is you find it online. It used to be like on the poles and stuff, but they're not there anymore. So everything's online. There may be a TTC app, but also they consistently change that. So going to the website before you leave a location is your best bet. And then they tell you the route where it's going, and then also any buses that it intersects with that you can then transfer onto those buses. This circle, that's a subway. The circle, there's 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that tells you where the subway is. This is not in the direction here. This direction tells you that this is north. So this bus line actually drives east-west, but so you have to pay attention to that too. And then here, the schedule again is very similarly tells you roughly when it's going to be at this intersection so that you can figure that out and how often the bus comes. And they try to update this information as they go in terms of if it's busy or not busy. But of course, things aren't always perfectly accurate. So that big, huge map that we looked at had everything on it. Then this is a simplified map that has just this subway, which are these lines. So the yellow 1, green 2, blue 3, and purple 4. So those are the main 4 subway lines. And then all of these red lines are streetcars. So you can see where they intersect and where they meet up with these various subways. Those are generally the fastest ways to travel. And then the buses go through all the little side streets and all the other little streets and are dealing with traffic. So just understanding this as a subway is a useful thing to do. And it also tells you can look at information about the subway line. So this is the Yonge University line, which is that yellow 1 line. It is not a straight line at all. Remember looking here, this is what it looks like. This kind of funky U. But here they just show you it all in order listed so that you can then click and find more information about it in terms of how often it runs. Trains run here, it says every 2 to 3 minutes during rush hour and every 4 to 5 minutes during off-peak hours. So they come very frequently. So some of the pros and cons of public transportation in general is that it's generally very efficient. It's a fast way to travel. It has a less environmental impact because more people are on the bus or the subway, and so therefore there's less cars. It's cheaper to use because there's no maintenance for you to have, so it's generally a good cost-effective way for individuals to travel. You can multitask, you can work, read, listen to music or podcasts while you are riding public transportation, opposed to when you're driving and you need to focus on driving. You have an opportunity to meet new people. If this is something that if you'd like to visit and chat with people, strangers, you can. And it's generally more accessible for older and younger populations because you aren't limited by your ability to drive. The cons are that some systems are absolutely awful. They just don't make any sense. They can have long wait times and it can be unreliable based on the weather or traffic. You can have accessibility issues, so all of their systems might not be like all the subway systems in Toronto don't have working elevators or have any elevators at all. So you can't, if you are using a mobility device, then you can't actually access all of the stations. And so you have to figure that out. There is a higher chance of for infectious diseases, the same way as that you're meeting new people. That means that you're also being exposed to germs. It's not suitable for remote areas, so places like here in Sioux Lookout or in our northern communities, it just doesn't make sense to have an extensive public transportation, so that is inequitable. It may be or feel unsafe. You are dealing with a lot of people, and that can mean that you might be in situations that feel unsafe or actually are unsafe. It can be overwhelmingly busy, and they can be very confusing. So you might end up getting lost or getting to the wrong place. I consistently, even though I've lived for years in Toronto, I want to go east. I always want to go east. Doesn't matter if I need to or not. I'm probably going to end up accidentally going east sometime, or south. I want to always go south. South or east are the directions I want to go. So I've consistently got on the wrong bus just because I'm not paying attention. So it's easy, even though I know it, it's easy to get confused. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how this relates to how we would budget this. So Rosa lives in Toronto and uses the TTC to get to and from work 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year. What is her annual cost? What should she budget monthly to cover that? So if you can look this information up. I remember that the TTC one fare is $3.25. So if she is doing $3.25 twice a day, so times 2, so that's $6.50. And then $6.50 times 5, because it's 5 days a week. So 6 times 5 is 30, 50 times 5, 50 cents times 5 is $2.50. So that's $32.50 a week. And then $32.50 a week for 48 weeks a year. That one I don't have in my brain. So we're going to use our Desmos. 32.50 times 48 is equal to 1,560. That one was? Yes. So for per year, Rosa's going to spend $1,560. So that is yearly on transit. So monthly, we divide that by 12. She needs to plan about $130 a month to make sure she has enough for her transit for the whole year. So now you can do the support questions on page 44, question number 1. And then now we're going to look briefly at car rentals. So renting a vehicle, this is on page 44 of your aisle booklet. So booking a car reservation is usually a low risk proposition. It's more akin to booking a hotel room than booking an airline ticket. It has prepaid rates. You can pay a pay later rate. There's often no cancellation penalty. Rates are significantly higher for young drivers. So renters under 25 commonly encounter daily age-related fees on rentals that can even exceed the cost of the rental car. So this is based on the fact that rental statistics say that if you're under 25, you're more likely to be in an accident. You do need a driver's license and a credit card. And you can overpay for car rental insurance. A large portion of the car rental contract concerns who is responsible for damage costs if the vehicle is in an accident. So it's just good to look into this. So things to think about when you're picking up a rental car. You want to bring your ID, your credit card, and your confirmation number. You want to respect the pickup and return times. They might charge you fees if you're outside of those times. You want to inspect the vehicle before you get into the car and drive off the lot. Inspect the vehicle's exterior, glass, and interior. Take photos of any scratches and damages that you find and ask the rental car to record it before you leave. You don't want to be held responsible for any damage that you don't create. You want to reject pricey extras. You decide what makes sense for you, but really think about it if you need it or not. And then what to do when you return your rental car. First, fill up the gas tank. They're going to charge you extra if your gas tank isn't full. They might have a level to level, whereas if it was half full, then you only need to fill it up to half full, but you want to be paying attention to that. Return the car during operating hours so that they know that you've returned it. Record any damage so that you can talk to them about it, and get a receipt. Whether it's printed or emailed, a copy of the return receipt shows the vehicle was returned at the set date and time and the odometer reading, so how far you drove and the fuel level, so they can't charge you for those things outside of that time. So it's important to have your receipt so that you know everything, what you're agreeing to. So Enterprise is one company, and again, the internet's your friend. So if you go to enterprise.ca, then you can put in you're picking up in lieu. So look out the date, the time when you're returning it, if you're returning to a different location, and then you can check the availability. So basically any type of car rental place has some sort of website like this. Same with Hertz. So again, pickup location, it's the same thing. Basically, you go through and you figure out which is the best option for you. And Avis is another example. So quickly, let's look at an example of calculate the cost of renting from each company for 3 days. Which would you pick? So I've already found these two examples. So we're picking up in Thunder Bay Airport for Avis, and returning to Thunder Bay Airport for Avis and we're having it for that's just gives me 1 day, but I'm going to calculate the total for 3 days. So this is also one of those things where it seems like you have one price and then you go through the whole thing and it gives you another price. So here it's telling you total prepaid amount. So for Avis, we're paying $237.16 per day. This includes all the taxes and fees already. So that's why we're using that. We don't have to calculate anything. So we're going to times that by 3. So 237.16 times 3 is equal to 711.48. So to rent from Avis, it's going to be 711.48 for 3 days. For Enterprise, we look and we see that it is a total is 101.93 per day. So times that by 3. Is $305.79. So based on just the cost of running it for 3 days, it is cheaper to do Enterprise, but it's also good to look to see if there's anything else that like Avis has unlimited kilometers. So we're going to end up having to pay a fee for kilometers. But here, Enterprise, you see that Enterprise also has unlimited kilometers. So it doesn't matter how much I drive, I'm still going to get the same. So this it's automatic with 5 people and probably can have 4 bags that fit. The Avis also has 5 people, automatic, and says it has 3 bags that fit. So it still looks to me like the Enterprise is the best bet. If for some reason I really don't want to have this vehicle and I wanted the SUV, maybe it's worth twice the amount, but I don't think that it's worth twice the amount. So I would go with Enterprise because it is cheaper. And still has unlimited kilometers. Similar to when we're leasing a vehicle, when you're renting a vehicle, they charge you fees for the kilometers if you're over. So now you can do the support question on page 45, question number 2. And that wraps up what we're talking about today. So let's consolidate what we've learned. So looking at lesson 20, modes of transportation, we talked about public transportation, and we need to be paying attention to the fare, the various methods of transportation that might be available, and that there's pros and cons to public transportation. There's great things, but also some things that are really frustrating. With car rentals, we need to make sure that you have your driver's license and your credit card, that your age does matter in terms of how much they're going to charge you. You want to watch out for extras. They might not be worth it. They also might be. Paying for the extra insurance might make sense because then you don't have to worry about it. If anything happens to your vehicle, then they just deal with it and it doesn't have an impact on your insurance, your personal insurance in the long run. So it's worthwhile to consider it. You want to make sure, you want to pay attention to if it's unlimited or limited kilometers. You want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, and you want to know what the fuel and damage fees are, or just be aware that there potentially are fuel and damage fees so that you return the vehicle undamaged and with a full tank of gas. So hopefully now you can calculate the monthly and yearly costs of using public transportation, and you understand the best option when comparing car rentals. So you have any questions about this last lesson, as well as the 19 lessons that came before, please reach out. Congrats on getting through all 20 lessons. That's awesome that you finish those, and if you just hand in all your work and you do your final assignment, then you will be able to have this credit. So our next few days that we have remaining on the radio will be review days, which are really useful days. So I'd still encourage you to check out those videos or join us here on the radio. If you want to ask me questions, remember my number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or you can call me toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or connect with me through Facebook, where my name is B. Slate Wahsa. All of our lessons are up on YouTube under the playlist MEL3E. My channel is also called B. Slate Wahsa, so go there and check things out if you need to review anything from past lessons. If you want to talk to me, my hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you want to connect with me within those hours, feel free, though I teach from 9 to 11. So that's not a great time to try to get a hold of me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely day. Which